Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
All is well. Thank you so much for taking time to stop by on the platform. I really appreciate you.
I really appreciate you. How did you approach me? Why me? I mean, I'm honored, by the way, but why?
Well, I thought the work that you was doing was interesting about impossible foods, and then I went to
Yeah,
your profile, and then that's how I got your contact information. You're doing
got
some good.
it. Very
Yeah.
enterprising. Yes. Thank you.
It's an honor. It's an honor. For the viewers who may not recognize you, could you let them know what your name is and definitely where you're from?
Sure. My name is Rachel Konrad, and I have done communications and marketing jobs at startups, including Impossible Foods and Tesla and many others. And I have also worked at Renault Nissan Mitsubishi, venture capital. I'm now a lecturer at Stanford. And I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and I grew up in Grosse Pointe Park, Michigan, which is just around the corner. And I am a proud citizen of Michigan, although I don't live there right now. And I would also say that I'm like a longtime student of the auto industry. It was pretty formational, foundational. I know you've had other guests from Detroit, so I just wanted to mention that it seems like it's a running theme, right? The industrial Midwest vibe.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm from Cleveland, so we
I
right,
know.
same neighborhood.
Exactly. Yeah, I've been to Cleveland many, many times. Yes.
Yes,
Taking the
indeed.
turnpike, going to Cedar Point every summer.
Right. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Now, what courses do you teach?
I teach a course at Stanford in the Graduate School of Business, and it's for MBA students. It's about writing and communication, and it's 10 lessons, and we go through some of the most classic writing assignments that you get in the C-suite as an executive in business. And it's everything from doing performance reviews on your employees to writing your LinkedIn bio, your About Me section on LinkedIn, all the way through to writing your own obituary at the end of your career. It's a pretty fun class, and I love teaching it. I think I actually learn more from my students than I teach them, but that's good. Yeah.
Wow, that's definitely interesting. Now I can ask you this: when did you develop this passion for, business and journalism and all of this?
Yeah. Well, I would say that, again, it kind of a lot started for me growing up in Detroit. Really, I was born in 1970, and Detroit in many ways was like really in free fall, right? The auto industry was in major trouble. Every summer, my dad would get furloughed, and we'd talk about moving somewhere to the Sun Belt, to Texas or Oklahoma or Florida or something, and it was quite stressful. um we One of my first memories actually is of the OPEC oil embargo and the shortages, the gas shortages that happened in 1973, 74, 75, where there would be these gas lines. Cars were literally running out of gas in Detroit. My father's car ran out of gas. He had to get out and push it. My mom was driving. I was sitting in the back seat, and I just thought, God, this is just such a fragile system, right? This is just not, it's just something's broken here. And I kind of grew up with thinking about that and got pretty lucky. I love writing. I've always loved writing. I've always loved talking to people. I'm pretty fearless when it comes to approaching people who have more status, power, money than me. And so journalism was a great fit. And I really got lucky in 1995. I got a job at the Detroit Free Press, the biggest newspaper in Michigan. And so got to cover the auto industry for the hometown newspaper. And man, that was just such an education. I got to, like you, I got to go all over the world. I traveled quite a bit, to Germany, Japan, I mean, you name it. And it was really fascinating. And then a few years, I kept that job for almost 5 years. It was amazing. But Silicon Valley and the Bay Area and the tech sector was absolutely booming. It was sort of like, tech boom 1.0. It was the internet boom. And in 2000, I moved out here to California. and as a journalist covered the tech industry, and I loved it, and I thought it was fascinating. But I had been doing journalism for, at that point, like 13, 14 years, and I was just kind of, it felt very repetitive, right? It was like I'd covered the upturn, I'm covering the downturn, I'm covering the upturn again, right? Like it felt very repetitive. And I was also becoming increasingly alarmed about climate change at that point. And one of the things that, is unfortunate about journalism is that, there's this thing called objectivity. And you basically have to interview, multiple sides to every story, in my case, as an objective journalist working for the Associated Press. And that meant that I basically had to give airtime to like climate deniers and people who just didn't really see the same threat level that I did from the carbonization of our environment. So I thought, can I go somewhere and have a bigger impact? And so I applied to this super obscure company that at the time had not sold a single car when I applied there. I got the job offer and I asked my friends back in Detroit, hey, should I take this job? And they were like, you're crazy. You're throwing your career away. Well, that was actually Tesla in 2008. So I joined in 2008 and it was phenomenal. I mean, just a fascinating case study in how much, spine it takes to run a car company. And did that for a few years, and really it was like getting an MBA almost every day. I was working directly for Elon Musk, which is terrifying, but it was incredible opportunity. And amazingly, we got through, a near death experience. We only at one point had 24 hours of cash in the bank. And then, but we made it through. We launched the Model S and we went through an IPO. It was pretty amazing. And so by then I was really hooked. I really wanted to stay at, startups and in business in general. And it really kind of opened my eyes to a world beyond journalism. And I'm super grateful for it.
Wow, wow, that's really, really interesting. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's cool. Now, okay, now you did some work with Nissan as well and Mitsubishi.
Yeah, so I ended up almost literally running into someone at the Paris Motor Show because I was going to all these auto shows representing Tesla, and I got a chance to interview with a man named Carlos Ghosn, who's very, very famous in the auto industry. While Elon right now is, incredibly famous, I would say Carlos Ghosn for the last, 50 years is probably the most well-regarded turnaround expert in the big incumbent auto industry. General Motors and Ford both tried to give him offers to come be CEO of their companies. He said no, he stayed, and he pulled together this alliance of Renault, Nissan, Mitsubishi, Bajaj, Auto, the Avtovaz, which is Lada, Russia's big car company. And he, kind of made me an offer I didn't want to refuse. It was to move to Paris, to live there, and have a global job working directly for him. So I did that for 5 years, and that was absolutely incredible for this kid from Michigan, right? Like to see the auto industry at that perch with that guy was incredible. Now, by the way, Carlos Ghosn is probably most notorious as like an Interpol wanted fugitive stuck in Lebanon because he was wrongly accused and basically would never have gotten out of Japan because of BS charges against him from his detractors. But so he escaped in cover of darkness to Lebanon, where he lived now. I wasn't there for that, but it was a phenomenal escape from an unjust, corrupt, judicial system in Japan. And we'll see what happens to him. I did that for 5 years. That was an incredible job. And then after that, I went to Impossible Foods. I wanted to get back to startups. I wanted to move back to the US. And this was a company that hadn't even launched when I interviewed there. They were still very obscure and hadn't sold a single product. And I joined them before they launched commercially. It was phenomenal. I was there for about 5 years, and I stayed there through like mainstream mass market awareness. Burger King, White Castle, Starbucks, Trader Joe's, Walmart, you name it, we were selling it everywhere. So that was phenomenal. And yeah, that's the story. That's what I did.
Wow. Okay. Okay. That's amazing. I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, working in Paris, that's a dream. People just dream about visiting, but getting to
Yeah.
live there and do what you love to do and get paid, that's amazing.
Oh yeah, it was incredible. I really, my mind was kind of blown away. I was open, my eyes were open to this whole new expat world, right? Like this kid growing up in the suburbs, like I would never have had access to that. I didn't have parents in the United Nations or in, the tops of multinational conglomerates or anything like that. And so really got lucky. And Carlos Ghosn took a huge risk flyer hiring me. I actually did speak French. I learned it in high school. And it I lost it for the most part, but I kind of like through just grinding grit, I got it back. And so that was phenomenal. But yeah, being able to live in a place, is even better in many ways than visiting, right? Because Paris, it's awesome if you can go there for 5 days or 7 days or whatever, but it's just such a gift to be able to go much deeper and to go on vacations in like the countryside and all that. It's a phenomenal place to be.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, I've been struggling with French. I was in like Madagascar for like the last 6 months, so I was
Yeah.
trying to work it. But it's a good experience to even try. It just open up your mind, to a new
Yeah.
experience for sure.
Yeah.
Um, Now let me say, okay, I wanted to ask you about this, decarbonizing the earth. What
Yeah.
exactly is that? And
Yeah. So I will say that, growing up in Michigan, I really never learned about the environment and the damage that our industrial world is wreaking on the environment. And it really wasn't until I was in college in at my 19-year-old says in the 1900s, right? Like it's some ancient year, era. So I mean, I was in college in the early 90s, and at the time we had this guy as vice president, Al Gore, who wrote a pretty radical environmental book called Earth in the Balance. And he had traveled all over to Patagonia, to the Antarctica, to all over Africa, Southeast Asia, etc., and was really looking at the growing rates of carbon in the atmosphere from burning fossil fuels effectively, whether we're burning them in our cars or in our homes for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, or whether we're burning them to create agriculture, especially animal agriculture, and other, robotics and factories and industrial processes. And our as a result of additional carbon in the atmosphere, our planet is heating up. And I don't need to tell you, I mean, living in Cleveland, I mean, you're much younger than I am, but when you were a kid, you probably remember much snowier winters, frozen Lake Erie shore, etc. And it doesn't happen anymore, right? The winter has changed a lot. Yeah, you get these unpredictable polar vortexes and stuff, but for the most part, this was the most mild winter that all of my relatives, in Michigan have had ever. Some people never have to shovel snow anymore and all of that. It's really terrifying because this is melting the polar ice caps, and it's melting the Greenland ice shield. It's causing water levels to rise, and as a result, we have to, as a civilization, as a, Homo sapiens species, we need to control this, right? Because it's all human generated. So what can we do? Well, for the past many decades, we've been very much aware of these problems, and we've kind of put the burden on, not on companies, but on individuals, right? To change. You got to drive an EV, you need to eat different, etc. But at the same time, we haven't really been giving the people the tools to do this. So the idea of working at Tesla, which is like where our goal at Tesla was to just steal market share, be more competitive against General Motors, Chrysler, Ford, etc. Same thing at Impossible Foods. Like, we need to provide you the product, Impossible burger, right, which is much lower carbon, frankly, also better for you, better for the planet, but certainly better for animals. And then you can decide as consumers, right? But we can't just ask people, you can't ask people in Detroit not to drive. Like, there's no viable public transportation. Like, you have to have a car. Or same thing with California. Like, our entire world is made up of processes that require energy. We just need to give people, products and versions of it and forms of energy, frankly, that don't heat up the planet, because it is we're at a catastrophic place right now. And I know that any parent listening to this is very worried, right, about the planet that their kids are inheriting, which is much hotter, has much less biodiversity, many fewer species, especially in Africa, where you've traveled. You know this very, very well, like the real problems with population decline there for major species, major tracts of species. The turning of the Serengeti into a desert, the desertification of vast parts of Brazil, Africa. We got to do something about this. So yeah, so I've tried to really make it my life's work to work with companies that are doing the right thing, and work with entrepreneurs and students who want to make this change.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Now I can ask you. I mean, do you get a lot of pushback from companies that are already established? Like, they just flat out say we don't want to do this, or is it like, yeah, we'll do it, but they never get around to it, or what's the whole?
Well, that's a very good question. It depends what kind of company you're talking about. Okay, so I'll be really honest with you. I don't talk about this publicly. I've never have, but I trust you. Um, so when I worked at Nissan, it was a phenomenal job, and I do think that the CEO, Carlos Ghosn, and many other people in the company were very um, authentic when they talked about trying to industrialize electric vehicles. But at the same time, you need to understand that electric vehicles cost a lot more to produce than internal combustion engine gasoline vehicles. And as a result, they're in general lower profit for the car companies. So for big car companies that have a gigantic fleet of vehicles, including EVs, including hybrids, including gas vehicles, including giant gas guzzling SUVs, right? They don't really have much of an incentive to sell these lower profit cars. They just make very little money on them. And as a result, they're kind of like, like, we're not going to make that much money on them. We don't really want to push these too hard. So if you, Taye, go into, like, Cleveland Nissan or Cleveland Toyota or whatever, right? Um, and ask to buy a Nissan Leaf, and you say, yeah, I'm interested in climate change and want to do something great for the environment. And then, you look at the sticker price and you're kind of like, it's a little bit, it's a little more than what I was willing to expect. They'll just be like, okay, well, let's get you into a Nissan Versa, right? They'll do whatever it takes to get you, hey, great, Taye, how can we get you into a car? How can we get you to drive off the lot today, Taye? Right, you know how they are. And they'll do whatever it takes to get you to buy something, ideally something that gives them more profit. Now, it's very, very different if you're at a startup like Tesla, where you only have one option, which is to get people to buy your electric vehicle. So you're going to do a lot more work to persuade that person. If they say, well, I'm interested in an EV, but I'm a little bit concerned about the price. It's a lot more money. You will say, well, actually, when you think about it, it's way cheaper to drive it per mile. It's only 11 or 12 cents per mile in electricity as opposed to 30, 40, 50 cents per mile with a gas car. You don't need to do oil changes ever. You barely need to touch the brakes or anything. There's virtually no maintenance on these cars. So you will make that argument, right? If your only thing you got to sell is the EV, you're going to sell the EV, right? So it's really, really different. And same thing, by the way, at Impossible Foods, right? At Impossible, we didn't have beef burgers or hybrid burgers or anything else. So it's like, we're just going to tell this story and sell this product. And also tell people what the truth is about, the incumbent product, beef, in the case of Impossible Foods. We're going to tell you what the raw truth is, right? I know your previous guest had a book called The Raw Truth. But Curtis is absolutely right about our industrial food processes and diet. It was just killing people. And he said this too, I don't need to rehash this, but like a large part of the metabolic syndrome crisis with diabetes, obesity, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, cancer, a lot of that is from our intensive consumption of of animals in the food system. And man, if we could wean people from that, it would be a complete deal breaker, game changer for the planet, for animals, for humans, for everyone. So yeah, when you're at a startup, you really are just much more, you got to do what you got to do. Like, failure is not an option. You can't rely on some other product. So it becomes a very different communications and marketing play in particular.
Okay. I appreciate you breaking that down. Now I wanted to ask you a little bit more. You had spoke about not eating meat.
Yeah.
It seems like you hear more people saying they want to be plant based or
Yeah.
vegan or
Yep.
vegetarian. But by you being kind of hands on, I guess with that, has it been a significant amount of people that's doing that to make a change, or do we need more and more people to do
Oh
it?
God, are you kidding me? We need way more people. The number of people who are purely vegan, right, who eat only plants is very small. In the US, it's like 1 or 2% of the overall population. Now that changes a little bit depending on the demographic and city and all that kind of stuff. But in general, it's about 1%. And that really hasn't changed for like 50 years. It's been roughly the same. Now, what has changed is the number of people who call themselves flexitarian, or who just don't even label themselves, but just know that eating largely, a meat-based diet is not good for them. Maybe their doctor has told them they need to lower their cholesterol. Maybe it's their significant other, their partner, their girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. Maybe it's their kids, maybe it's a nurse or some kind of health practitioner who's like, hey, you can either go on these, cholesterol reducing drugs, or maybe stop eating meat every day, right? And so they are curious, right? They are curious about what alternatives are out there. And so we're seeing people who try it. Now, unfortunately, we're also seeing a major effort on the part of the beef industry to basically get people to keep consuming this, you know toxic kind of, hyper processed food that they've created. And they will go to great lengths. They will produce Super Bowl ads. They will make the product as cheap as possible. They will, go on fear, uncertainty, and doubt campaigns about Impossible and Beyond Meat and every other plant-based product. And unfortunately, I think that's working. They've done it to great effect. I think, 20, 30 years from now, we'll look back at Big Beef's campaign against the truth, right, of their product, and we'll say this was actually really similar to the 1980s, smoking lobby and the campaigns from the smoking industry to sow fear, uncertainty, and doubt in people about the true costs of their product, right? Remember, you might be too young to remember, but in the 80s, there was like, does smoking really cause cancer? Or are some people just more prone? Are there cancer clusters generally in different communities? Who knows, right? And this basically delayed the transition to very low rates of smoking in the United States by probably 10 years. And I think that's where we are right now in the world of beef, right? The beef industry has um just perpetuated this lie for so long about the noble rancher with cows that are walking around in the sunshine with red barn doors and grass blowing. I mean, that is all absolute bullshit. Not so sorry to be offensive, but it is complete bullshit. And the average cow in America starts its life with artificial insemination, and it leads an entire life with a diet of hormones and antibiotics, and it dies a early, brutal, sad death, right? That's that. And it's carbonizing the atmosphere, heating the planet, making you sick, right? But we all believe that like happy cows come from California and live in the grasslands of Wisconsin and all that. It's just absolutely marketing crap. It's disgusting, but very effective.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Because you go to the grocery store and you see it. You see like I think organic beef now, or grass fed, or like you say, they trying to catch that wave of people who want to be more
Yeah,
conscious, but
yeah.
may not know. Okay, now I can ask you this. We 26 minutes in. Have you ever considered doing a documentary about this? This would be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually participated in several documentaries about impossible foods. I just was part of us shooting a video about Tesla, right? So yeah, I'm always happy to help. I mean, that's why when you emailed me, it's like I'm really always happy to spread the word. I do think that one thing that makes me very happy is that the world of podcasts and like more independent media, I think people can get the raw truth, as your buddy Curtis would say, right, more easily, if they're looking for it. But if you're just hanging out with mainstream mass market kind of media, you don't really hear much about Big Beef's war on the truth, right? And war on our bodies. And, just in order to make more profit, they're just absolutely pushing a false narrative about how natural beef is. It's not. It's absolutely not. Several years ago, Consumer Reports, which is like the gold standard, right, for testing of consumer products, they did a study and of hundreds of pounds of ground beef across America in Kroger, in Walmart, in Trader Joe's, all over the place, Safeway, and they literally found that all of it, 100% of it was contaminated with fecal aerosols, like poop in the food, right? From being in a slaughterhouse. It makes sense, right? But where's the information on that? Like no one follows it up. And a lot of times the beef industry will actually just sue you to shut you up. They call them the ag gag laws. They try to not have you disparage their core products. But that is reality. That's the kind of late stage capitalism that we're we're dealing with right now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you made some good points. Do you have a book out, or are you working on a book or anything like that?
Not yet. I am definitely going to. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I'm really enjoying teaching right now. I feel like that is high impact, right? I can help a lot of students, especially those who want to go into highly disruptive startups in climate or food and health, right? That's really, really fun. Also being out here in Silicon Valley, I work with a lot of venture capitalists. These are the people who are investing very, very early stage in the next generation of companies like Tesla, like Impossible, et cetera. They're investing in, fusion energy and using artificial intelligence to make and discover foods and ingredients from natural sources that are better than the ones that we're currently consuming for protein and things like that. So it's very exciting times out here, but yeah, I do think we're in a perilous state. So yeah, I want to do whatever I can. I don't know, maybe I'll write a book. So we'll see.
Okay, okay. I definitely look forward to that and any other work that you have coming in the future. So I want to thank you so much for stopping by. We made good time.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate the
Yeah.
information
I
you shared.
I
It's
I
definitely
also, can I just say one more thing? Because I really want to
yeah,
encourage people who listen to you, right? I know you have a global following, right? I just really want to encourage people that if you see a problem in your house, in your community, in your country, in your world, right? You actually can go after it, right? And you can start a company. I mean, I've worked for Elon, right? When we were both 36 years old, right? And you can we didn't have any experience doing this, disrupting the auto industry or anything like that, but you can do it. You also don't even have to start a company. You could do what I did, which is think about where you want to have the most positive impact on humanity, right? And maybe that's ending global hunger, or maybe that's, gender equality, or whatever it is. You think strategically about how you can make that part of your career, because you're going to be working 40, 50, whatever hours per week. You might as well make that count. You might as well get some energy out of it, right, from yourself, and really make that count. So that's what I really want to tell this audience in particular is, do something that's bending the arc of history to make it better for the rest of the world.
yeah, that's definitely empowering. I'm glad you shared that because, like you say, if you're gonna invest 40 hours a week into something, it might as well be something that you're passionate about, give you a purpose
Yeah.
in life, and make it better for the next generation.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's the key. It's honestly like if you do that, you will have enough money, you will have enough work-life balance. Like the rest will follow. But go for the impact. Like go for the maximum possible impact in whatever cause is most important to you. Because like I said, yeah, you're just spending, and 40 hours is like that's a minimum, right? As most people know, like you're usually working more than that. You're also commuting, you're all this kind of stuff. You might as well really make that time count. And again, just, to wrap it up, the last assignment that I assigned to my students is to write their own obituary. And by the way, my average student in my classes is like 27 or something. And realistically, they're going to live to be about 100 with the current life cycle trajectories. So they're going to die in like 2100, 2099, which sounds like an eternity, but that's just their lifetime, right? So what are you going to do? Think about that long arc of your career. What are you going to do? Like maybe you're a podcaster for a few years, maybe then you go into ending animal ag, or creating a more just, ecosystem for entrepreneurs in Africa, or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't know what floats everyone's boat, but think about that from a backward looking trajectory at the end of your life, right? Like you're going to want to go for the impact.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. That's something that I thought about myself because I do genealogy. So a lot
Yeah.
of times I research people's family trees and they'll leave information behind. And then in some cases it might just say, well, this person worked at this factory for 30 years and
Yeah.
they maybe they like to watch baseball or something. It'd be something short, but I want my obituary to be inspiring and impactful. Like, how did he do that? Or I want to do that. Or wow,
Oh,
that's amazing.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, you've had a phenomenal career so far, right? Like, and I presume the people who listen to you are similar in that they aspire to a lot of impact. And I just want to say, like, you can do it. You can unleash it. Sometimes it might mean moving, or it might mean studying a different path in college, or taking a very high risk job that your friends tell you like you're insane to do that, right? But but it's actually what's gonna make the biggest difference for you, for your family, for your community, for the world.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. So thank you again so much. So I
Thank
just
you, Taye.
do a couple little edits, and then
Okay.
I'll maybe in a few days I'll send you the link.
No problem. Thank you so much. This was
Mhm.
awesome.
All right, take care and be safe out there.
Thank you for doing what you do. Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.